children, adolescents, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, people living with disability, the poor, and people who are at the risk of malnutrition. Excellency, Honorable President, honorable members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude by saying that Africa is capable of responding favorably to the challenges of food and nutritional security, and the Pan-African Parliament has fully deployed this model law that will help us in this manner. What remains to be done is probably to forge and implement the necessary partnership and strategic alliances at national, sub-regional, and regional levels in order to promote the adoption and implementation at national level, so that the national parliaments will be equipped to work with other partners in order to effectively implement legislation in terms of food and nutrition security. Thank you so much for your attention.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you so much, our dear legal counsel. You have very clearly recalled the Pan-African Parliament's mandate to enable harmonization of laws in member states. You have also given us the historical background of this model law and the different processes and the different responsibilities and duties. And you have mentioned also the flexibility that the model law provides for member states that are going to be able to implement in their own countries. On that note, I would like to now say that the launching of this model law, we are now going to have the opening remarks of His Excellency President of the Pan-African Parliament, under whom this law was adopted. And he does deserve our acclamation, because it's not very easy to have a model law adopted. But as soon as he arrived, he promoted the adoption of this model law. Please welcome him with me with acclamations. Mr. President, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, the Director of Proceedings, our Deputy Clerk, Mr. Gali. I will salute the Bureau members, although all of them are out on other assignments. I recognize the chair of the committee, or the acting chair, the Committee on Rural Economy, Agriculture. I know it goes and goes. Honorable members of Parliament, and I want to salute you for being present here. Can I clap for you and you clap by yourselves? I want to say thank you for your commitment to the business that brought you here. Not everyone is here, I know. But those that are here show that they are really committed. May I also recognize Mr. Louis Hove? No, he's not here, this one. Is it? No, you got given a salutation list written maybe yesterday. This one is not here, is it? Who is from FAO? You can't be Louis. So someone, you are in for Mr. Louis, eh? Thank you. Madam, is this one here? Madam Lydia, but I said Lydia Konane, Deputy Director of African Union. I think she's here. Yes. Mrs. Estarin Fontabog, Director of Agriculture, Food and Security. NEPAD, you are here? Yes, I know Dr. Mitika Mwenda very well. I know that he's not in this room, so he's being represented, recognized. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, my first comment, when these were standing up to present, you were very quiet, so I would then clap from there, and then you would also follow me. You know, when someone is called to present, please clap for that person to motivate them so that they have a bit of energy. You don't just let them go, just motivate them a bit so that they can present with motivation. But I have a speech. I will not go through that speech. We are here to launch. Let's launch. But in launching, we have been told that the issue of food and nutrition security is a human right. I think it's someday, not today, we need to have a debate on this issue. What is a human right? Some rights are well enjoyed, but some of these rights, to what extent are they rights? Because some people are sleeping without food. Then what is a right? Because in some cases, I have to enjoy my rights. So this right on food, I think we need to debate on it some other day. And I keep also reminding you of the shame on us in Africa that we are unable to produce enough food for ourselves to eat. That's a shame. And for parliament like this one, for Africa, I think beyond this launch, the Committee on Agriculture come up with something that we should do to really fight on this issue as PAP, so that we are counted. Let's take this issue seriously, that with all the advantages that we enjoy on this continent, in terms of climate, soils, land, and everything, why should we be fed by countries whose climatic conditions are even more hostile than the ones that we enjoy? I think we need to ask ourselves fundamental questions. And I am saying, the Committee on Agriculture, please, please, I want to challenge you. Come up with proposals as to how we can move. Because in this chamber, yes, we come, we talk, and we go. No, I think let's go a step further. Through our delegations, Honorable Majimbo from Kenya, we want him, after this, to hear that in the Parliament of Kenya, after this launch, there is fire there. We go there and say, no, look, we are from Pan-African Parliament. What we are seeing on this continent is totally unacceptable. These are the statistics. Where are we doing this? Kenya, where are we? Minister of Agriculture, can we meet? What is missing? It's a budget. Give him that money. Or give her that money. What is missing? I think we should take ourselves a bit further because this subject that we are launching on today, food and institutional security, food security. Long time ago, I will look for the year. When did Abraham Maslow, you all know Abraham Maslow, hierarchy of needs. He wrote books, hierarchy of needs. Hey, which year did he talk of Maslow? 1930 something, 20 something, long time. He said for human, there's a hierarchy of needs. And the food is a basic need. Food, shelter, water. Maslow said these are basic, very basic, before you move to other levels of safety, social needs, self-esteem, self-actualization. So you still have other 4 levels as a human being to go. We are still battling with number 1, the lowest, which is just water and food. We are still struggling. Other nations have reached self-actualization. So to struggle today, to say we don't have food, we have food insecurity, we are in the ancient of times. We are in the ancient of times. So this launch should see Africa moving away further to other better needs of a human being. Higher needs than strength to eat, only something to eat. Others passed that phase long back. They went to the next level, and they went to another level, and another level. But we are still battling. And I'm challenging our own MPs that the Committee on Agriculture, by the time we end next week, we want to see some robust direction that you give us and say, I think we have launched. Don't just launch, and I have a book here, the model law is going to be launched. A lot of such things have been launched in our countries, but they don't work even after launching. So we want to be different as PAP. Let's not launch like we are sitting on a dead horse that will never move. Let's launch and run with that horse of launching. Surely we need to do that. And the committee, I'll be reminding you, delegations want reports from your national parliaments after this to say we launched, we went to our parliament, we came up with this, and we move forward. Then PAP becomes relevant. And WFP, thank you for the food that we see when there's drought and others. But WFP should also be part of us in ensuring that there is enough food. WFP should not only come in when there is a hunger. Let's prepare with you. Let's avoid hunger as much as possible. That will help us. Let me conclude by, of course, thanking our partners who worked with PAP to get to this moment. And I know FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, you gave us technical and financial support to walk this journey. The World Food Program, we thank you, and you are also present. Auda NEPAD, and PAGJA. I want to thank you, and also thank the members of Parliament for the work that you did and for being present this morning. I thank you can we now move to launch our model law, which will ask our various parliamentary delegations, when they go back, to push for the domestication of these things? My speech ends here. Okay, I mean, the launch means alikala. Removing the cover. Yes, first before we move some pictures. Are we okay? It's not. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, sir. In the house, we say order, order, although we are in a workshop. I want to apologize that my own nature first, when I attend something, I attend to the end. I'm not a politician, I am a chief. Politicians run away when they present. We don't run away. But for today, I have about people gathered in my office, so many commitments. So after the launch, you'll excuse me, and I'm late for some other engagements. But I'm happy we have launched. The launch has taken place. Yeah, I'm happy we have launched. Sorry. Good? No.
honorables membres,
Honorable members, after this official launch, the model law on food security and nutrition in Africa
Muito obrigado.
Thank you. I think that we have interpretation in place. I am Adalberto Jr., MP for Angola, and I would like to greet the Bureau and His Excellency the President is leaving the chambers, but I have a question to raise. I'm quite pleased to see that the law were shared in English and French versions. I don't know what is the case for the Arabic-speaking countries and the Spanish-speaking countries, but I would like to know, why do you here in PAP you consider there's two types of languages, the first level languages and second languages? We don't have the Portuguese version of the documents, or they are only shared in a later stage and they print first the English and the French versions. I would like to crave your indulgence at the level of the Secretariat of the PAP to treat equally all the official languages of the Parliament. Thank you very much.
merci, honorable.
Yes, thank you, honorable member. You are absolutely right to raise this point and to say that the model law is only available in two languages, and we are taking note of this, and we promise that after this launch we will make arrangements to have copies made available in all the languages of the Pan-African Parliament. Given this point, I would like to now come back to saying that after the phase of launching the model law, we would now like to go to the panel discussion. And with your permission, I would like to invite the following people, in fact, to take part in this panel discussion. I would like to invite the Honorable Esther Pasidis from PAP. He is from the Agriculture Committee. And I would like to invite Madam or Mrs. Kiselin, who is the legal counsel of FAO. I would like to invite Mrs. Lydie Kwame, who is the Deputy Director of WFP in the Global Office of the African Union. I'd like to invite Mrs. Bibi Giose, who is the special advisor, and also Mr. Clément Mavungu, who is the legal counsel of the Pan-African Parliament. I would like to respectfully invite them to take place on the stage to lead the discussions on the panel on the model law on nutrition and food security. I believe that the members of the panel have taken their seats. Mr. Clement, are you staying where you are seated? Right. Thank you.
L'honorable Suleiman.
Honorable Lemon, you are moderator of this panel, and I would like to, Suleiman, I beg your pardon, I would like to ask you to facilitate this session and take my place where I'm standing. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, our able chair of the committee or acting chair of the committee. And good morning to our able panelists. It is indeed a great pleasure to stand before you this morning to moderate our panel discussion on a model law on food and nutrition security in Africa. The task this morning is not a difficult task because we have heard a lot from the various presenters, and we all know that food is essential to our survival, and not only food per se, but quality food, that is nutritious food. So without wasting much time, I would like to introduce our able panelists who are here before us. One, we have Honorable Esther Passaris, member of the PAP Committee on Rural Economy, Agriculture, Environment, and Natural Resources from Kenya. Can you give her a big round of applause? Lydia Kwame, Deputy Director, African Union Global Office, World Food Program. Can we give her another big round of applause? Mrs. Ceciliani Cheristal, Legal Officer FAO or FAO. Can we give her another big round of applause, please? You're welcome. Mrs. Estherine Fatabong, Director for Agriculture, Food Security, Environmental Sustainability, and Climate Change. Is she present? Okay. No, you're supposed to be here on the panelists. So can we acknowledge her presence? Thank you. Mr. Clement Mavugu, Legal Officer of PAP, who has been with us since time immemorial for developing such a beautiful law. Can we give him a big round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, we will now go straight into the program. And the program, as I said earlier on, I will be a moderator to coordinate and our understanding about the model law. So questions, specific questions will be asked, and later the floor will be open to honorable members to ask further questions or to make contributions. So I thank you for your kind attention. Stay and enjoy the panel discussion. Thank you, honorable members, our panelists. Once again, welcome. Can you introduce yourselves kindly and tell us who you are and a little bit about the law that we want to discuss this morning? We will start with our honorable member from PAP.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Esther Basaris. I'm a member of parliament. I represent the capital city of Nairobi. I'm serving my second term, and I'm a member of the Pan-African Parliament. In Parliament, I represent, here in the Pan-African Parliament, I'm in the Rural Economy Committee. Back home, I'm in the Housing and the Lands Committee. It would be wrong of me to not say that, I'd like all of us to stand in prayer, not only for Kenya and the civil strife that we're having right now, but also for all the countries in the continent of Africa and the world that suffer from civil strife and wars. We cannot talk about food security, food safety, when we have instability in any country, because you need a stable economy for us to be able to look at food. When it comes to the model law, I'm very proud that we have come up with a model law. And I'm looking forward to taking it back into my own country, looking at the laws that we have, and also looking at the gaps. I have personally gone through the model law, and I've also seen within the model law that we have some gaps that we should have. And law is not cast in stone, so we always have an opportunity to look into laws and improve on them. So for me, I feel that safety needs to be added to Article 2, because you can't talk about food security without addressing food safety. There's also a need on Article 9 for the state to provide safe and secure breastfeeding spaces and support lactating traders and customers. There's also a need in Article 10, to add Article 10, where the state shall provide adequate monitoring personnel to enhance adherence to along the value chain, state to provide regional laboratories for food testing. There is also need to add an article where the state will provide standards and regulations for front of pack labeling for all food items in the market. And there is also need for us to address food loss and wastage. When we talk about feeding a continent, we also have to recognize that there's so much food loss and so much food wastage. So food rescue is a process of collecting surplus and unsold food that would otherwise go to waste and redistributing it to those in need. It's a shame that even in Kenya, there's some parts of the country that has food that is being thrown, and in other parts of the country, you have people who are starving. The practice helps reduce food wastage and address hunger by making use of perfectly edible food that might be discarded by grocery stores, restaurants, farms, and other suppliers. So for me, I am proud of this historic moment, and I feel that each and every member of the Pan-African Parliament has a moral obligation, whether you're in the rural economy or a committee, or whether you're in another committee, to actually, understand this model law. And I hope that during the course of the week, we will be providing it to all the other members, because not everybody is here, so that they can take this law back home, look at the gaps in their own laws, and then enhance the laws. Because together we can beat this. We shouldn't let the efforts made by the various partners, who I thank for the work that you've done, go to waste. We need to make sure that we improve on food security, food safety, and nutrition. We are what we eat. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And thank you for giving us the rundown. And you talk about Kenya, and we all know that we cannot have proper food production when there is a war, when there is a civil unrest. Food security cannot be in place without having a peace of mind. So I think we will all pray that peace prevail in that beloved country of ours. Thank you. We will now move on to the second panelist to give us a little background of herself and what you do.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Facilitator, Honourable. I did introduce myself earlier. My name is Lydie Kwame. I am the Deputy Director of WFP. As you know, the work of WFP is in food security. It's twofold. The first one is saving lives, so it means lives are saved in emergency situations. In conflict situations, we adopt and we, in fact, provide relief by providing food, as the President mentioned earlier, to the population. Food. contributes to reconstructing stability in conflict situations. And this was also recognized, and WFP was honored in 2020 with the Peace Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, for the work that it had achieved. We have a second area which we call changing life, and that means to change the lives. So WFP rather works in strengthening nutrition and food security for people, especially children and women, and we support small producers in improving productivity as well as the reduction of losses, as the Honourable mentioned earlier, and also to face certain shocks and to confront them that are linked to climate change, and to prepare the people and the populations, because we saw recently in the East region of Africa and all in this particular area, even if there's no conflict, we can see today that we are faced with situations that are associated with the climate. So we notice that we need to include small producers, because most of agricultural production is done by small producers, and we need to recognize this work. So therefore we provide support to them, and we also make sure that this area can develop human capital by providing school nutrition as well, school meals, because this area is an important event or a project for WFP, but also for the African Union. And our bureau at the African Union works with the different committees to enable, and also with the specialized agency, that school nutrition is a catalyzer, not only for food security, but also related to the theme of 2024 of the African Union. We want to also make sure that education and food are put together and ensure that children can be educated in Africa, because it is only by educating children that we can have much more resilient populations and by providing school nutrition and meals as well in the schools. So WFP, as we said earlier, is really honored to be participating and contributing in the work on the model law. Given that we don't have a legal framework, things can be a little difficult. So the implementation of this model law does require coordinated efforts, and WFP will commit itself to working with the different stakeholders and partners. In the area of advocacy and sensitization, so with our presence in 46 countries in Africa, and with by means of the partnerships and are established with the governments, we can contribute and participate with in sensitization and advocacy actions. The communication strategy is, of course, also very important, because one needs to be able to communicate at all levels. And as we call it, the last mile, and that means communicating with the population. We can commit ourselves with decision makers in the parliaments, of course, but it is also important to strengthen the technical skills and capacities and to provide training. We have been approached a number of times by groups of parliamentarians to obtain support, because we are talking about a subject where one needs, of course, knowledge. And when we talk about food security, there need to be budgetary lines, and these budgets are voted by the different parliaments. But if we do not have informed people on the matter, it becomes a bit difficult. So we are ready to commit and to provide support to the different countries by means of the Pan-African Parliament, of course, to offer training on food security and nutrition, because with time and after 60 years in Africa, we have indeed obtained the experiences, and we can provide clear examples from the different countries. As we have been doing up to now, we can also provide support, technical support, to the different countries. This is what we have been doing. And of course, we are not there to replace anyone, but to rather provide support. And I would also like to recall that we don't only work in emergency situations, but also in development and aid situations. I'm going to stop here for now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. We all know what WFP does in our countries, and we want to thank you as partners. We started the journey together until we reach to this fateful day of launching. Your support to the school meals. I myself, I was not regular in school when I was young, but because of the school meals, when I knew that there were meals in the school, so I have to be present. So it's a kind of motivation, it's a kind of ensuring that students come to school regularly, and also to provide them with what? With food. Thank you for that rundown that you gave us as a partner. We will now call on Mrs. Cecilian Cheresta of Legal Officer FAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Kisleen Cheristal, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here with you today. I am a legal officer with the Development Law Service of the Legal Office of the Food and Agriculture Organization. I think our name says it all, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And our mandate, in a nutshell, is to help defeat hunger. That means that we work to improve food security and nutrition. We work to increase agricultural productivity and sustainability, to improve the quality of life of rural people who are often the main producers of food. And we do so by providing technical support in all areas that are related to the FAO's mandate. We combine scientific knowledge with programs and actions, including the development of laws and other legal instruments to further our mandate. We do so at the request of our members. The work that we do within the Development Law Service in particular is worth highlighting. We work, again, as I said before, on evidence-based, context-based understanding. We provide tailored legal advice, and we do so through a participatory, inclusive approach. That means that we work with all stakeholders, and that's an important element of the way that we work. Because indeed, it is very important to understand the realities, the priorities, and the constraints of the context in which we work. I am honored to be contributing as a member of FAO to the collaboration, the long-standing collaboration between FAO and the Pan-African Parliament. This collaboration is long-standing and has been very helpful in getting us to this model law and the launch today. It is not the only area where we work with the Pan-African Parliament. We also work with the Pan-African Parliament on the development of a model law on soils, on cooperatives, on gender, and on climate change. And we're very proud of the contributions that we have made thus far to these processes. To end, I would like to state as well that we work at the regional level on the continent, as well as the sub-regional and the national levels. We also work at the subnational levels. FAO has a regional office in Ghana. and sub-regional offices in Southern, Central, West, and East Africa. And we also have offices at the national levels and also at the subnational levels. Our mandate is based on the commitment of FAO member states to end hunger. Our mandate is to ensure that we aligned our activities and our programs with the commitments that members have made at the international and at the regional levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, and thank you very much. The mandate of FAO is very clear: to defeat hunger, to make sure that we have food sovereignty, to increase agricultural productivity, technical support, combine scientific knowledge, and model law on soil management, which we will soon launch in this house too. Thank you very much. That is in line with AU agenda, the Malabo framework of reducing stunted growth by 10% into the goal of Agenda 2060. Zero hunger. So we thank you for your partnership and your collaboration, and we hope the relationship continues. We will now call on Mrs. Estren Fatabong, the Director of Agriculture, Food Security, Environment, Sustainability, and Climate Change, to just give us a rundown, because he made a very good presentation in summary. You're welcome.
Thank you. And apologies for the mix-up. I wasn't so sure if I was on the panel or not. But I think my sisters in the panel have given excellent contribution to the discussions. I just would like to say that the African Union Development Agency, being the development agency of the African Union, we do very much welcome this model law because it's addressing a subject that is of utmost importance to the continent. At the top of our agenda, where we are as a continent, I think the continent stands at a critical junction, as it really sets to chart a path for developing sustainable and effective food systems that can ensure the delivery of healthy diets to our populations. We did cite some of the statistics earlier, and I really was very impressed listening to the president of the Pan-African Parliament when he spoke about Maslow's law of development. And he said, as a continent, we are still struggling with the basic need of providing our people with food, the basic security that our people need. And I think he put it in a manner that was really stark, and call all of us to increase our efforts to support our member states and our communities to be able to feed ourselves. So at the level of the African Union Development Agency, this is really at the top of our agenda. NEPAD has been at the forefront of supporting member states in implementing CAADP. And as we all know, CAADP is the continental framework for food and agricultural security in the continent. We have worked with member states to develop their national agricultural investment plans. And one of the areas that we have put really strong emphasis is to ensure that the issue of nutrition security is embedded in the National Agricultural Investment Plan. And in a very practical sense, it's about putting in place the policies that enables the production of food, the distribution of food, the accessibility of food to an enabling environment. But also it's about making available the budgets as well as the investments that can help in the addressing all these things that I just cited. So my colleague Lady spoke about the homegrown school feeding program, which is a very important program. Again, going back to what the president said, we should not only look at the humanitarian response, where there is a crisis and we come in and provide food. They say, you know, it's better to teach someone how to fish than to provide them with the fish. So at AUD and NEPAD, we believe, and through this program, that we need to build and support the capacity of smallholder farmers to produce food for themselves. And the homegrown school feeding program should not be furnished by imported food, but by collaboration with, you know, the smallholder farmers so that they are full participants in addressing this question of ensuring that we address the question of stunting of our children, knowing the consequences and the impact that it has in the economic life of our nations. So at AUD and NEPAD, we are very committed to this subject, this question, and through the CADA process, work that we have already done with the NIPES, but more importantly, at this junction where we are looking at the post-Malabo framework, supporting, working, and designing in consultation with all actors, a new framework for post-Malabo, which will probably be called the Kampala Declaration, because the extraordinary summit to adopt this framework will be held in Kampala. It is time that we bring our collective effort to influence this new framework for the continent. And I think the molded law, with what it has aligned, will help us to make sure that we capture the issue properly in the post-Malabo framework. And collectively, we work with the member states to set the conditions to implement the framework. In particular, the issue of coordination is a big question. We go back to the countries, and when we talk about food and nutrition security, it's not only about the Ministry of Agriculture, it's about the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Finance and others. Are the necessary conditions there in the countries to ensure we have a coordinated effort to ensure one delivery on this important subject? I think we all, particularly AU and NEPAD, is driving towards that integrated approach and multi-sectoral approach to address the question on food and nutrition security in the continent. I thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, Madam. We need a multi-sectoral approach since it affects all sectors. And it's high time we own our production. We should not be relying on hangouts as a continent. We must make sure that we produce food, we eat foods that we grow in our communities. So for far too long, we have been depending on aid. Africans, if you look at history, we have our own traditional foods. And these foods, we are so much nutritious. So why are you waiting for the, for international partners only to support us? I think it's high time we domesticate some of these laws so that there will be good budget allocations. The young people are supported to invest into agriculture. So we thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, we do have some specific questions to some of the panelists, then we will open the floor. Honorable, you are a member of the Pan-African Parliament. So what do you think is the rationale behind developing a model law by Pan-African Parliament?
Okay, for me, the rationale behind this model law is to persuade state and non-state actors to ensure adequate funding in this area, which will result in adequate food. We also need to raise awareness and provide extension officers to enable our food producers adopt technology and fund research and innovation, and to provide incentives and cuts on essential farm inputs like fertilizers, farm equipment, and seeds. For me, the model law addresses the unique food and nutrition security challenges faced by many African countries. The guiding principles on how the challenges of food and nutrition are to be tracked, key among them being the effective participation of all stakeholders, accountability, non-discrimination, gender equality, human dignity, empowerment, rule of law, and good governance. You know, it's, in our laws in Kenya, we have Article 43 of our constitution that says that every person has a right to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable quality, clean and safe water. You can't have good food without water. And then, of course, education, health, access to good housing, all that tie into food. Recently, one of the biggest contentious issues, or as we try to raise in the finance bill, as we try to raise taxes, was trying to put a tax on bread, VAT. But we also have all agricultural foods being exempt from tax, and trying to bring the prices down to be affordable. We build markets in the urban centers that can produce food to make sure that we can have food readily available and also create opportunity in terms of jobs. So for me, it's coming up with a model law, even though that we know it's a model law, it gains no weight unless we take it back to our countries, look at the laws that we have, and as I said in the beginning, it's not cast in stone. We can continuously improve on it. But hearing about the food program, Kenya became a middle-income country. And because it became a middle-income country, the World Food Program stopped the school feeding programs in our country. So it meant that we needed to innovate ourselves and recognize the fact that in that gap that we had of not providing school feeding programs, our students were not going to school, and the retention rate was getting lower. So now counties themselves have been providing the resources. For the model law to be effective, it has to be legislated within our own countries, and at the same time, it has to have sufficient budgets. And I think the impact of climate change is not being discussed enough. We know that food security has been challenged by climate change, and we're having such a hard time getting loss and damage from the people that have caused the mess in the climate change, where Africa bears the brunt, and yet it's not the one that has the highest emissions. I feel that there is a need for us to look at debt for food security. And I think the organizations that are working on food security need to now say that, look, you did it for health. You came up with a way to write off death for health and to be able to make vaccines more affordable so that, we can have innovative taxes in the West. I think there is a need for us to not just have laws, but have laws backed with resources, and have the global north take responsibility of the challenges of food security in the continent of Africa or the global south. And maybe we have a way to negotiate through the UN, right, through the Africa Union, on loss and damage for food security in the continent of Africa to make the model law have impact in our various jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Mr. Clement Mavugu, Legal Officer PAP, this question is meant for you. From the legal perspective, what are the challenges in aligning national laws with the model law?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for the question. From a legal point of view, and as you may know, the law may be an instrument to respond to a specific social problem. And I think here the social issue which the law seeks to respond to is the issue of eradication of hunger, food insecurity, malnutrition, and generally food poverty. And the Pan-African Parliament is an organ of the African Union set to promote and ensure the facilitation of effective implementation of African Union policies and objectives, particularly those that touch on human rights, including the right to food. Is well placed to ensure that at the member state level, laws are responsive to the problem of hunger, insecurity, food insecurity, malnutrition, poverty. But when you look at our member states, some laws have been enacted, and probably most of them were enacted before 2015. And those laws are also scattered. So when you do an analysis of the laws in a particular country, you would see more than 10 different laws addressing aspects of food security and nutrition. So therefore, the need felt for PAP to ensure that, one, we come up with one toolbox which can respond to all aspects of food security and nutrition in one instrument. Secondly, to ensure that the level of protection in terms of implementation of the right to food is the same across Africa, whether you go to the Gambia or you are in the DRC or you go to Eastern Africa. And thirdly, learning from the various instruments ratified by the member states, but also best practices from various AU member states, it was also an occasion to put into one document best practices which other countries can use. Lastly, I would also say that the model law came in at a very critical moment where the world, and particularly Africa, was facing or is facing consequences of challenges related to climate change, related to COVID-19, related to desertification, and other possible challenges related to food production, transportation, and therefore, since most of the laws adopted by the member states were adopted before 2015, the model law is coming handy to actually integrate lessons from those events and propose to the member states an instrument that may be contemporary and that may respond to the current needs and aspirations of the people of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clement. We now go to Lydio Kwame. Yes, Lydio, we have seen to read that we are good at making laws or model laws, but as an experienced international staff or worker, what do you think we can do or your institution can do and other related UN agencies to make sure that this model law is popularized or domesticated by countries?
Thank you. Getting the most easy question. Okay, I'll try to respond to this one. As you know, the successful implementation of this law will require coordinated efforts from various stakeholders, including the World Food Programme and other relevant UN agency. I see here, they usually say that FAO is the father and mother of WFP. It's important to recognize that we are a program that came from. So this is why most of our mandates actually speak to each other. So all those organizations play pivotal role in advocating for the popularization and the domestication of the model law. So for the WFP, as I mentioned earlier, we will leverage on the existing mechanisms that we have, because it takes time to build trust with communities. And I think we managed to do that in more than 45 countries in Africa. So this presence is it's our first comparative advantage. And it's also important to know that we don't work in silo. We have what we call the joint programming. So where you have WFP, you also see FAO, you see UNHCR, UNICEF, and others. So all together, we can work on a few points. I think the first one is advocacy and awareness campaign. It's important to work on advocacy, because if we step out of here and people and population are not aware of this law, and also all the partners, including donors and all, are not aware, then we will lose the momentum. So working on advocacy and awareness is important. Having a clear communication strategy. You know, the World Food Program for us, we are a very practical agency. So having a clear communication strategy, utilizing existing media and mass media, social media, and community outreach program, it's very important. Having some policy brief and reports, sometimes, the good thing is that this one is not that long, but when you're not a law person, a legal person, it's not always easy to read through it. We are not all as good as Clément or others, because we have different backgrounds. So let's think of our population and how this will be actually digested. Technical assistance and capacity building for us, I think it's important, or not always building, sometimes it's just strengthening. Legal expertise is not all for all of us. So making sure that it speaks to everybody, including the population, the chef de village somewhere in the village, and all communities is very important. Assisting and strengthening local institutions, because it's here in South Africa, but how do we make sure that it gets to that level of granularity with all sometimes we think of the parliament, but then we also have all the local institutions responsible for food and nutrition security through capacity, so we can do that by building the capacity. And we do all this using what is there already. It's not that we want to reinvent the wheel, because we already have some mechanisms that are in place. There's also the research and data collection, because most of the time what's lacked, it's evidence generation. My sister actually mentioned some of the study that we already do with the African Union, and I want to recognize the COA, the Cost of Hunger study, that actually show the importance of taking care of nutrition at early age, because when you see, and it's so clear, it was a scientific study that we already had with the African Union in 24 countries. Now we are moving to the 25th country, where it clearly showed the link between food insecurity and the GDP. That's where of a country, that's where we don't only involve the nutrition, health people, and it's also involved the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Finance, and so on. So making sure that we have evidence that will attract the attention of all actors. Monitoring and evaluation is also a very important area where we can support, because in all our programs, we already have existing mechanisms for monitoring and evaluation. So we can use those same tools that exist to also monitor the establishment, monitor the progress of the model law. Because as the president said, we have many initiatives that sometimes stayed in our drawers. So we make sure that it actually populates, and also we follow the progress, and also the production of regular report and update on the status of the domestication effort, highlighting achievements and identifying challenge. M&E is very important in all good initiative that we adopt. Partnership and collaboration is very important, and we should leverage on some existing platform, like one that we really like, which is the Sun Movement Network. For those who don't know, the Sun is the Scaling Up Nutrition, which is very much present in Africa, and forming coalition and alliance with local NGOs, civil society organization, and private sector to support the domestication effort, because the Sun movement is already there and doing the job in making the effort in scaling up nutrition. So why don't we use existing platform? Because those platforms are strong coalition, not only with government, not only with the UN, but you have the social society and collaboration with all UN agencies such as, of course, FAO, WFP, but also UNICEF, and a pool of, this will help pool resources, not only financial resource, but existing expertise. Because as we say in WFP, when we enter a country, we work towards stepping out and the exit strategy is part of our job. As Honorable mentioned, right, in Kenya, for instance, we're not there implementing school feeding, but we can still contribute to the passing on the expertise and the capacity that we have built in Africa for years. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwame, Madam Kwame. The other question will go to Honorable. Honorable, after the law being launched in the Pan-African Parliament, so what will be the role of Parliament in its domestication? What do you expect from parliamentarians when we go back home? How can we make sure that polarization and domestication takes place?
I think, yeah, I think the first thing is every parliamentarian, you don't have to be in the Committee of Agriculture. Every parliamentarian should basically be given the model law to go back with to their country and then hand it over to the ministries of agriculture or the committees of agriculture within their parliaments so that they can actually look at the model law and look at the gaps. And also, there might be gaps in the legislations within their country, or there might even be things that they're doing in their countries that are gaps in the model law. At the end of the day, we all have to come together to ensure we have food security. And the most important thing, like for instance, in Kenya, over the last government and the current government, food security is one of the top agendas that we have. But again, it's negated through the challenges of climate change. And I think we're not speaking enough about the impact of climate change on food security in the continent. And the strife that we have right now is because most people don't want taxation, because the one simple thing, they can't even feed their families with the little resources that they have. And the unemployment rates in Africa is, of course, very high. So we have to have a holistic approach. And I believe that Africa Union has a role to play, and all the partners, once they're all aware of the model law that they've invested in, we have to use all channels to make sure that it gets audience. I think there is a need that the model law be tabled at many of the multilateral meetings that you have when it comes to food security, or just have it be one of the things that is tabled, because we as parliamentarians can do that. But I think if everybody's talking about the model law and the importance of enhancing the laws within your legislation, and the need for food security, the need for resource mobilization, and the tie-in, I really think that for me, climate change, the floods, the drought, the high temperatures, the low temperatures, all this have an impact on food security, and that's where we really need to focus. We can have all the legislations in place, but if we cannot have land that we can grow it in, or climate safeguards, we're not going to have food security. So I think it's important to have a holistic approach and call out the global north for not taking responsibility on the issue of food insecurity in the continent and the global south because of climate change.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that add-up. Yeah, I want to ask Madam Serestal, with the introduction of model law, what critical policies do you think it will add value in your cause?
Thank you very much. If I may repeat the question to make sure that I understood it. In the context of the model law, what are the critical issues?
Yeah, policies.
Sure. Thank you very much for this question. It certainly would require a much more extended conversation, but I will attempt to just highlight a few elements that I think are very important to consider. So of course, this is a model law. This is not a binding instrument, but it is morally binding, as the AGG, Dr. Abebe of FAO stated earlier. And it requires, as the chairperson of the committee also stated, that we go beyond a launch, that we actually look to implementation. I think a critical benefit of this model law is that it speaks extensively on the issue, amongst many others that it touches upon, but on the issue of implementation, enforcement, and compliance. The third section, so to speak, of the model law goes a long way in looking at how implementation, enforcement, and compliance can take place. It speaks to the importance of budgeting. It speaks to the importance of coordinating mechanisms. It also speaks to the importance of accountability mechanisms. Goes into details about accountability from the ability of reporting on issues that countries are facing to accountability on the ability to bring grievances to judicial bodies after having looked at administrative processes to address when a country, having domesticated the model law, would not bind itself to its obligations. So I think that the question of enforcement is key, because indeed a law needs to be implemented for it to have value. And the fact that this model law, having looked at a diversity of country legal frameworks, the FAO with the PAP conducted a study, a policy study, that analyzed about 175 different legal instruments across 35 countries in the continent to come up with a model that takes into account the diversity of the experiences and the legal context of the different countries in order to form the model law. The other element that I think is very important will be to build political will. I think that this is what this model law can help achieve. That through the model law, political will can be strengthened in order to have stronger advocates and champions for the model law, and in order for food security and nutrition to be a priority in the political legislative agendas of the different countries. I think it's, as a third element that I think it's important to highlight, is that financial and technical resources are going to be needed for the model law to be implemented. And I'm very happy to point to the work that FAO has done and that can be built upon. It has done that work in partnership with a variety of actors. And the the technical support that we provide, of course, spans the gamut. As the Honorable mentioned, the importance of climate change and its impact on food security, the importance of looking at school feeding and nutrition, the importance of looking at access to natural resources, the importance of looking at biodiversity, the importance of looking at pollution. So these are all elements that are cross-cutting that we work on extensively within FAO. And I would like to point that what we need to do is for the knowledge that exists within this space is harvested and is used optimally to implement the model law. And what I mean by implementing, of course, I mean domesticating and making sure that those who have prioritized the model law are able to bring it to the forefront at the national level. I would like to point out that there are as well a variety of parliamentary alliances, some of which have members, I'm sure, in this very esteemed space that are working on food security and nutrition laws at the national level as well as at the sub-regional level, whether in Central Africa or in Southern Africa, as well as in Eastern and Western Africa. I believe that my colleague have already mentioned the names of the different alliances that exist currently and that are working on food security and nutrition. So it's important to ensure that that synergy exists and is strengthened between the regional efforts, the sub-regional, and the national efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Since time is not on our side, we have last question for Madam Fatabong. So after that question, we would like members to intervene, to ask and contribute to the discussion. I believe the discussion is very healthy, and members also will be able to speak, to the direction that we can make it applicable in our various countries. So, Madam, the last question for you is: we are aware that NEPAD has initiatives as far as promoting food and nutrition is concerned. What do you think the model law can add value to your cause, to these initiatives?
Thank you. I think first, the model law has, within a single document, capture all the importance and relevant aspects on the question of food and nutrition security. So it's a very strong advocacy tool. I think we should all try and work to make sure we distribute it widely to all the relevant stakeholders, because it really, I think, helped to, as I said, emphasize what are the critical issues to be considered in our national legislatures, by our governments, in terms of programming, by the non-stakeholders, civil society, working to support communities, by the private sector, in terms of areas where we should be putting investments, by our academic institutions and research communities in the areas where we should focus to bring innovation, with all the intention of improving our food and nutrition security in the continent. So that helps us in our programming and in ensuring that if we talk about the school feeding program, people can relate to it. This is a critical area we talk about biofortification, which is a NEPAD program. We can see why we are emphasizing on this in terms of standards. Secondly, I think it helps to bring harmonization of views amongst and across countries. So it's not only about a member state, but this model law adopted as an African Union document will be utilized across all AU member states. So again, it can help us to build, cross-border programs, integrated programs, because we have a common agenda. And thirdly, I think it will also help in terms of coordinating our partners, because we've talked a lot about coordinating at the national level of our ministries, sectoral departments, and all of that. But I think our development partners that comes and work with us, this document will also help to tell them what are the priority issues for the continent, and not another agenda driven from another person's interest or another country's interest. But this is the interest of the African Union and the African member states. So that will be very helpful in that respect. And I guess lastly, to the point that Honorable has been making, it will help us to bring important agendas together. In this case, the climate agenda and the food agenda. This cannot be separated. And I see it in a position as the director of a directorate that handles these two questions to say, you cannot separate these two agendas. At the national level, at the continental level, and more importantly, at the global level, because we see this conversation happening in this space and this conversation happening in this space, but this linkage has to be brought together. And so when we talk about financing and resources, for instance, we must tap on the climate financing that is out there to support the food system agendas in our countries. That point will be, the one thing I didn't see is to bring also the agenda of infrastructure into this conversation. To say we have the climate, the food, but also the infrastructure. When we talked about post-harvest laws, loss and damage, all these questions, we need to see how do we ensure that we minimize post-harvest loss in our countries to help us to address this question on food and nutrition security. So this model law, even though it's not a binding document, is a very important one, as it gives a guiding framework for programming, for investment, for financing at the level of our member state, as well as for programming at the level of the African Union Development Agency. Thank you.
Much, Madam. Can we give them a big round of applause? I think they have really done justice to the task being given to them. Notwithstanding, we will still open to the audience. If anybody has any question to ask, you can. And if you have a contribution, you can do so. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that time is not on our side. So we'll give each 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So we have 10 minutes in all. Yes, Honorable.
Le Benin. Honorable Moderator. Perhaps my first contribution will be towards WFP. They have repetitively highlighted their role in school feeding program, which we very much appreciate for the last 50 years. And they're slowly throwing their hands into contribution towards that program. But my take really would be, we can never achieve food security without seed security. You see, whatever interventions have been made by FAO to plant the hybrid seed is not helping, because those things are losing their hybrid figure and we are losing out. We need to see how best WFP, the relationship of mother to daughter that you're associated with, is helping us really to work with our land races and the OPVs as we are moving out and leaving the legacy that you are talking about in school feeding program. Members here will be aware that perhaps our head of state from Lesotho has been the champion of food and nutrition in Africa. And we really need to be moving towards that direction. The colleague perhaps from NEPAT, as I conclude, has talked elaborately in terms of integrated approaches that they are doing. And I'll tell you from experience that personally, as a retired university professor now turned MP, You know, we can do all these frameworks, all these integrated approaches that are good on the paper, but people will always judge us as politicians in terms of what we write in the paper transform to them. You know, they are interested in policies that will affect them in the next cropping season, not what we put into integrated models and frameworks and policies that do not affect them in terms of their daily lives as a meet.
Thank you, Honorable Member from Lesotho. Yes, Honorable from Eswatini.
Le Benin.
Thank you.
Le Benin.
It's been, thank you very much. Who has taken the floor is asking the president or the chairperson.
Okay, c'est moi.
Can you put your hands up?
Je suis.
No, hold on. Can you kindly sit down? You are not given the floor, please. Honorable, come up, then after you, he can come.
Thank you so much, presenter. I'll just add a few things that the issue of climate change threatened the food security in agriculture sectors. I think the SADC countries should work together in handling the issues of climate change. The agriculture should be also taught at grassroots level. Another challenge is a shortage of fertilizer and its cost. We should look at ways of fighting the outbreak of the diseases in animals kept for commercial purposes as well as import and export trade. So also encourage people to produce their own food, even in a small scale. I think the model law is added here when we would be reading here. I think those things is added here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Honorable.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I would like to take the floor to draw attention to the fact that the protocol started between the Pan-African Parliament and NEPA in 2016, WFP rather, and it's urging our parliament to accelerate implementation. So we should provide we should recognize the quality of the technical and strategic partnership of WFP in Benin, and also to bring the experience here, which means that in the council meeting in July 2022 in Rome with WPF, in fact, our country was recognized as being the champion of nutrition in schools and in the world as well. And thanks to the strategic partnership present in our country since 1975 and the new government and its governmental action, we improved a child at school with school nutrition. In 2017, we went from 20% to 31%, and now we are at 75% of school children having access to meals. And of the 75%, it's 30 billion invested. In the next 5 years, we would like to reach the 100% of children that are taken care of in the school feeding systems. That means primary and secondary school. And this would be able to so, Your Excellency, I would like to say that this program is not a standalone program. We had to have a national school feeding program that integrated it, and when implementing that program, it doesn't have any political leaning. And the management of this program from all political quarters actually was relegated to the population. So strategically speaking, the coordination on a national level, which is attached to the President of the Republic, in 2023, the country obtained a nutritional program for 33 decade, and I'm very happy about this program or this document because we are already ahead. I would like to and we need to implement it in our country to be able to improve the laws that are already exist. So of course, we already have a framework law for agriculture and food security and nutrition since 2022. We felt it was necessary also to have a framework law for sanitation, another law only for climate change, and also, naturally speaking, a law that accelerates and that privileges community health. I want to say that this law is extremely important, and I would recommend as well that when implementing it should be related to it should be decentralized by taking into account the importance of the grassroots communities and the communities. I'm talking here as an ex-minister who worked on this in this field, and our countries need to support this model law by having planning and development, sustainable development and evaluation or assessment, and our country already has such a law. Now, in terms of assessment, we will need to take into account sustainability, and here our country has created an agency for nutrition to enable WEPF to play a strategic role, complementary, and that it enables us to focus our attention over and above the Maputo indicators and any other indicators that are related to nutrition. I'm not going to speak too much longer, but I would like to highlight the fact that I would really say that I appreciate this model law. I've read it. It takes into account all of the important aspects and makes it possible to relate or link up the concerns with the quality of the educational system, because 50% of our children in our country, thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
May I ask you which country you come from?
Je viens du Bénin.
I come from Benin.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. My name is Show Tafanana, MP from Zimbabwe. Honorable Chair, I've got some recommendations that I need maybe our facilitators can capture into our model law on food and nutrition security in Africa. I'm encouraging the use of drought-resistant and flood-tolerant crops types, as well as implementation of climate-smart techniques, farming, and also investing in rural infrastructure, including irrigation systems, storage facilities, and transportation networks to reduce the post-harvest losses and increase market access. Also, I also want the team to also capture the improve irrigation infrastructure and water management system to reduce the impact of climate shocks on agriculture production. Also, to create and implement effective early warning systems to help predict and limit the effects of extreme weather effects. Also, Honorable Chair, I also encourage crop and income diversification to reduce the reliance on a few basic crops while increasing resilience to economic and climate shocks. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much for those adopts, and I believe it will help us. So as this is a model law, and with time we will be able to amend or add certain things. So these recommendations are highly welcome. Yes, honorable member from Tunisia.
شكرا جزيلا سيد الرئيس، شكرا لكل من ساهم في صياغة هذا مشروع القانون الجديد.
Hello, interpretation, English.
What?
Interpretation, English version.
شكرا سيد الرئيس، شكرا.
Thank you very much, Thank you to the honourable delegate from Tunisia. I am from Tunisia. I would like to congratulate everyone in contributing to this document. And I would like to, of course, all the ministries of the African Union, agriculture ministers should meet to coordinate the implementation and the realization of this model law, because they are the ones who are responsible for executing and implementing this law. And there should be a communication campaign in the media so that all the media can also be present and sensitize all of the stakeholders and take into account all of the issues related to agriculture, such as water, transport, climate change, so that food security can be guaranteed in all African countries. And I thank you for your attention.
That's our wish. Thank you. Yes, from Kevat.
Muito bom dia a todos. Cumprimento. Good morning to all. I greet everyone. I would also like to say the same. I would like to greet all for this contribution and collaboration that has been afforded this law. But for the fact, just the fact that I've heard the different presentations, as my colleague Adalberto from Angola has already said, we have some limitations due to the translation aspect. As such, we have very little to contribute, and this law ought, in fact, to be translated into the Portuguese language, because we would like to make a contribution. Therefore, I am thankful, and I ask for the next occasion we have to take into account the Lusophone language so that we may duly contribute to the work. Thank you very much.
It was not a deliberate wish, and as you alluded, it's well noted, and it will be taken into consideration. Our sincere apology. Thank you. Next, Honorable from Tunisia.
شكرا.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And greetings from Tunisian greetings to all of our colleagues and brothers and sisters of the Pan-African Parliament. And I would like to thank all of the people who contributed in the preparation of this document. I would like to raise 3 points that are of importance. A conceptual point, the second one with regard to the content, and the third political. With regard to the concepts, I think we need to make a distinction between food security and food sovereignty, because all colleagues know that the media and other communication means and many members of civil society who work in this area introduce confusion in terms of the terminology. And of course, we are working for food security. We want to provide the means to obtain the obtain the necessary foods. And of course, sovereignty is something different. It focuses on the production and the distribution of foodstuffs and to those who need it. The third point with regard, or the second point on content, is that we need to draft a plan so that we can focus on food sovereignty, which should be a mapping exercise of the agricultural situation in Africa. So what do we sow, for example? Where are the seeds and why? Thirdly, there should be storage facilities. There should be also an instrument that enables the distribution of foodstuffs. And fourthly, as well, we need to do research on the technologies and the scientific research on local production. And all of these recommendations should be made. Of course, we need to put action to words. We talk a lot. We talk about something that's of great importance. It talks about survival of people. And of course, words alone cannot of course, face a hunger situation for people where thousands or millions of people on the African continent face hunger. So all these laws and words need to become a reality, need to become palpable, and that it engages the stakeholders. The Pan-African parliaments, if they just remain consultative or observers, they are not going to be liberating us. We need to therefore become more action-oriented. Thank you for your attention.
The zeal and the enthusiasm from the floor shows that this model law will not carry dust in our parliament. So thank you. Yes, madam.
Merci, honorable.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank every person who worked on the model law. Africa is a continent that is vast, and we deplore the situation in which many African people are finding themselves. We talk about malnutrition in Africa. So it is true that we don't lack any good laws in the African Union and Pan-African Parliament, but my concern is, what is the strategy that will enable us to oblige the African member states of the member states of the African Union implement the laws so that the Africans do not continue to die of hunger or continue to be suffering from malnutrition. Thank you.
Much, Honorable Madam. We have the last on our list, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable,
Merci
I did not see
beaucoup,
your hand. What happened?
Honorable.
Honorable Chairperson, I would like to take the floor and to thank all the panelists for having made clear contributions. But I would also like to thank and congratulate the committee for having drafted this law, this model law, and to have been able to present it here today. I would like to focus on Article 14 of this law, which talks about food and nutrition in schools. We all know that 2024 is the year that has been dedicated to education in the African Union. So this is this year's theme of the African Union, and it's in Article 14. There are some clear directives, and I would like to take the floor here to invite all of the honourable members to when they go back to their various countries, to respond to these questions of school feeding and school nutrition, and that this issue, these topics become of great importance because they relate to the education of our children. And as you know, food in schools is a motivational factor, but it is also of course, a factor that provides balance in families in rural areas and as well as urban areas. Families are very often disturbed because the parents are at work, and if we can have some school feeding programs, and these children are able to study, and they can study in far better conditions, and the results also will be produced, because there are some countries that are far further improved in this area, and therefore the school results as well have improved. So this has contributed to the better results, school results for the children. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Ture from the Gambia.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And I also thank the presenters for all the information that they have provided to us on this model law. Honorable Chair, as the adage in Mandinka is a Jibila Ningwe Benta, that we are members of the National Assembly in our countries as well as in the PAP, and we have been struggling to fetch water. All of a sudden, we have met with a flood. So I think our problem is being solved. We can only do one thing to help the situation, to ensure that this model law is fully implemented. Honorable Chair, we are informed that 60.5 million children under the age of 5 years suffer from stunting in Africa. This is a serious statistics, and we must not allow this problem to continue. I only want to say one thing in terms of monitoring and evaluation or accountability mechanisms, how the National Assembly or the Parliament is going to work with the FRO to ensure that the projects they have in our various countries, including our own projects, are fully implemented to save them from what we all know is happening in our countries, that is corruption. We know that many projects fail because of corruption in our countries. We also know that FAO implements projects in our countries. They do the funding, but at the end of the day, those who implement the projects end up squandering the resources, and then the FAO will have to come with another project to be able to complete the projects. We've witnessed that. So what collaboration can the members of PAP and the National Assembly work with the FAO to ensure that oversight is properly done, to ensure that you get the information that you get and you do the corrections that are required. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ture. Honorable members, I think we have come to the end to give our panelists at least each 2 minutes to respond to issues if they have any, because the contributions being made, they are more of adding value to the cause. Yeah. They are more of taking cautions to see to it that implementation is done. So I would like to invite, I will start from Honorable Esther. If you have any response to any issues raised by honorable members, if there are no response, then we can move to the order.
Thank you, moderator. I think every member internalized the model law, and I believe that there is always room for improvement. But the thing is, let's start where we are right now and do the best to enhance food security as we champion loss and damage for food security in the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From WFP?
Merci. Thank you so much for all that have spoken. I think the important points have already been brought out by the different contributions, and just once more, I'd like to just recall the WFP commitment to populations and communities, and I really do appreciate the contribution from Lesotho. And the King of Lesotho is actually one of the champions for food security, and we do collaborate with this country in order to contribute food and nutrition in Africa. We also have them as a school feeding program champion, and if we do ensure that for children they are well funded and that we do organize them well, and just like we have been reminded by the honorable member from Cote d'Ivoire, that there's a very clear point on school feeding programs, and we do appreciate this collaboration, and we do reiterate our commitment of the WFP to work together with the Pan-African Parliament and other African countries in order to ensure food security, but also food sovereignty, we hope. Thank you.
Merci. Madam Lydia Kwame, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think that this conversation has been very helpful, and I note the comments from the different members about implementation in particular. And I will say that because the enthusiasm is here, it is important to seize the moment and to ensure that what is being said here and what is contained in that model law becomes a reality for every African man, woman, and child, as you have stated very well yourselves. Each of the interventions is from a country where FAO has offices and where FAO works very closely with the government and other stakeholders. We have helped develop laws, policies, implement programs that deal specifically with food security and nutrition security. And we are very proud of the collaboration that we have with your governments. And we intend to continue to do this work and to learn with you so that we achieve the common objectives. I will also mention very briefly that FAO has worked extensively around the globe, but in particular in Latin America, in implementing model laws such as this one. There are good lessons from Latin America that have helped feed this process. So we have extensive experience that we can leverage in order to help the continent achieve similar objectives. We also work at the national level with parliamentary alliances, and I want to note that as well. So it's been an honor for us to be here in this space with you. We very much regret that Dr. Abebe couldn't be here, but I want to say that I'm here representing a very large team of FAO colleagues, from nutrition to partnership to biodiversity. Many colleagues have contributed over the years to making this model law a reality and are committed to doing so in the future. Thank you. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre attention.
Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Now we have Madam Esterienne Fatabon.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for all the honorable for the very, very useful contributions that they've all made. I think the African Union Development Agency, as a development agency of the African Union, is about impact. It's about getting things to the level where we have impact on the lives of communities, of the African people. So it's about implementation of programs. And so we see this model law as not something on the shelf or something that we're just going to pass another document, but something that should be implemented to have practical impact on the lives of ordinary Africans. So all the ideas that have been mentioned here, whether the TVET programs from the colleague from SADC, the school from Benin, from Zimbabwe, that spoke really lengthily on the infrastructural questions, which we consider to be really, really important to this question. From the colleague from Tunisia, the honorable from Tunisia, and all the others are very pertinent questions and contributions. And I think for us, we capture them and we see how we integrate them in the implementation of our programs to our support to member states. I also I think it will be really beneficial that we could have more sessions like this. I really have been very, very impressed. The contributions from all the parliamentarians have been so rich. And the suggestions that have been made earlier, that because this is about taking this to member states and domesticating them, having sessions like this where we come and interact again and see, whether they've been legislated in the country or whatever way the countries have implemented this law, this model law, I think will be very useful. So I would really recommend that we consider as part of the implementation and monitoring the implementation to have similar sessions like the one we just had now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Well spoken, and is noted. I think 1 year from now, we must try to see to what is happening in the other countries. We'll do monitoring as well. Thank you. Honorable Mr. Clement, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll be brief, maybe 2 or 3 issues. The first one, we noted with much satisfaction interventions around school feeding, but I think the model law, modern school feeding, is also making provision for food and nutrition education, because feeding well and being able to produce food sustainably should be part of the empowerment of the youth and children at a lower level. And I think this is one of the things which may be highlighted about the model law. And secondly, on strategies for national use of the model law, a lot has been spoken about embracing the model law as a whole, probably through the normal legislative process, whether through executive or even through initiatives by parliamentarians through private bills. And I think we, at least at PAP, there's one example this year already, which may be highlighted. In Mauritius, there was a parliamentary consideration of a law on disability. And one of the PAP members from Mauritius was able to use the PAP model law to contribute to the debate and influence the content of the output of the legislation. Lastly, still linked to this, some ongoing initiatives at the national level or even national parliaments can still be taken advantage of. Assuming that a specific law is being discussed in parliament and which may have a window for a parliamentarian to make inputs to ensure that a specific article or principle embedded in this model law can be integrated, the model law still will help them to do so. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you so much, honorable members. At this juncture, we would like to thank our able panelists for their research and the knowledge that they have shared with us. And we would like to thank you for your participation as well. Without you, there will be no panelists here because we cannot come and talk to the empty chairs. So we salute you for your coming, and we want to thank the leadership of Pan-African Parliament, the Bureau, and all the support staff who made this panel discussion a success. We thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le modérateur et l'équipe.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The I would like to ask you for your permission to applaud and to thank the panelists, and thank you very much also to all the panelists, rather to the members of Parliament. Dear honourable members, while recognising the presence of the first Vice President of the Pan-African among us, I would like to say that we are moving towards the end of this programme, which is structured as follows.
We're going to have the closing remarks from the first Vice President, and thereafter we're going to all gather here for a group photo so that we can take photo and immortalize this special moment. And then we do have special arrangements for a lunch that has been organized in the hall. So after the photo, we are going to go outside and enjoy our lunch. Your Excellency, Madam Vice President, please do come and give us your closing remarks.
بسم الله. لقد شرفني معالي رئيس البرلمان الإفريقي الموقر.
The President of the Parliament, Chief Shorombera, in order to present this final speech. Mr. Abdullah Barakat Ibrahim, head of the Agriculture Committee, Mrs. Fasa Rees, the head of the Environment Committee, Dr. Abede Gabriel, the Assistant FAO Director General, Mrs. Estarine Fotabong, Director for Agriculture, Food Security, Environmental Sustainability and Climate Change at NEPAD, Mrs. Lady Kouame, the Deputy Director of the African Union Global Office and the World Food Program, Mrs. Mitika Mwanda, the Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA, brothers and sisters, honorables, during the long hours you were preparing this important model law on food and nutrition security in Africa. Well, you discussed this extensively, this important law that will have a positive influence on nutrition in general in our continent that is suffering a lot of environmental and agricultural dangers, and our continent is facing a big dilemma. So it is very rich in resources, natural resources, and labor, and very poor in productivity and in operation. So such a law would be organizing certain aspects that have to do with the responsibility of governments and the responsible on agriculture and the agriculture inputs and the issue of nutrition in general, and on organize the market of nutritional resources and organize wages and labor in such market, and also to create an information system that would allow for quick intervention in case of crisis and natural disasters. Of course, you will be defending such law in your countries and by your parliaments, and accordingly, I would ask of you personally to work for a true follow-up in order to have the implementation of such law and enforcement in our country, especially where such laws do not exist. Such laws are very important to allow our continent and our people to proceed ahead, and that's why we have to defend by all means of what we can achieve in order to improve the health conditions and agricultural and nutritional condition of our African. And with the blessing of Allah Almighty, I finalize this meeting, and may the blessing of Allah be upon you. Thank you.
Je vous invite à
I'd like to now invite you
لأخذ الصورة.
to
Les petits bébés.